Okay, and here comes your screen. Okay, and one more thing, from next Wednesday, we will have a regular class at 10, okay? I'm still ready to conduct a class at 9, but then your CR has told me that there might be some electricity problems at your end. So we'll have a class anyway at 10 because you're free. I know you don't have a class, right? So I'll move my class from 11 to 10, and that is for all the Wednesdays ahead till your teacher asks, the actual teacher who's supposed to take the class at 10 would ask me that she would be conducting a class herself. Till you don't have a class at 10 on Wednesday, please, I'll be conducting the class. CR, please communicate it to everyone for the next Wednesday and all Wednesdays ahead. Right. Today we are going to do something really interesting. Okay. This is one of the most interesting method that you are looking at on the screen. Okay. This is called as Suggestopedia. Right. My message is conveyed. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So today we are going to talk about one of the most interesting methods in the history of language teaching, and a very different method indeed. Okay, this is called as Suggestopedia. Okay, so now what is this Suggestopedia is? It's a very different kind of learning, and the one who actually designed this method believed that the method is functional and workable, not just for language learning, but the learning of any kind. Now, we would look at the theoretical aspects of this method, but just to tell you how this method is very different, I would say that in this method, the teacher is required to provide students a very comfortable, non-challenging, and non-threatening environment. Okay, where they do not see the teaching as and learning as compulsory or obligatory, but they are given a freedom. Mentally, they are given a freedom, but they have to learn the language anyway. That is why we would see them in the classrooms, right? Now, if you remember Krushin, I asked you to read Krushin. One of the hypotheses takes the theoretical underpinning of this method. This is not said by the proponents of this method, but you would find out that the hypothesis or the theory of affective filter is very much valid for this method. Okay, when the affective filter of the student is low, right, then the learning is more. An affective filter and learning are inversely proportional to each other. If the affective filter is high, if a student is in a stressful environment of learning, or if he knows that it is an obligation to learn, that kind of an environment and that kind of teaching would hamper the learning. So this method basically, because it was invented and designed by a psychiatrist, okay, so no homework is given in this method, and a student learn at his own pace, right? um, there is a better furniture in the class, like cushioned chairs, and then there are dim lights also. The teacher makes use of music as well. So all of it is very different for this method than the rest of the methods, right? The success of this method, we cannot say what was the success rate of this method, but after a long time, we would get to see the role of mother tongue. Okay, since grammar translation method, all the method that we have done except for grammar translation method, we saw that the focus moved only to the use of target language, and mother tongue was lost somewhere in the process of learning the second language. Okay, so mother tongue wasn't a part of the classrooms anymore. But here in Suggestopedia, you would see, because Suggestopedia is to keep the students relaxed, right? And the student would feel more relaxed if they are talked in their mother tongue, okay, or if they are instructed in their mother tongue. So mother tongue isn't used as much as we witnessed in grammar translation method, but whenever students feel the need to, they can use it. Okay, they are under no compulsion that they should not use it. Okay, they are not fined, they are not punished, and that doesn't come as a principle in Suggestopedia not to, use the mother tongue at all. Okay, now as I told you that it has more, the method is based on the psychological theories. Okay, because it was designed, this method was designed by a Bulgarian psychiatrist who was an educator also. um, People, um, the linguists especially, were very critical about this method. Okay, because there is no timeline, and then student would meet in a relaxed environment. They are not um, taught in ways that are very, very traditional. They're not given homework. The teacher only tells them very lightly that they should read it if they feel like. Okay, there isn't any homework, but they should revise things that are done in the class, especially the newer structures and some of the vocabulary, uh, whenever they feel so. And here we would also see that there would be memorization of the vocabulary items. And this person believes, this Bulgarian scientist, Lozanov believes that memorization becomes very easy when the effective filters are low. Okay, when the students know that they would not be tested for memorization, so they would remember things better. Okay, now this method is also called a Suggestopedia or desuggestopedia. That is, students are desuggested. Now we would see what is desuggestion, or what is that the students are desuggested about. Now this is also known as desuggestopedia. The students are desuggested about their stress. Okay, they are asked to not to take stress, to stay in a relaxed environment, and even their identities are changed for this purpose, right? When the class is conducted, as we would witness a class in Egypt, we would see that the students are given new names. Now what happens when the students are given new names, they feel like they are not the person, they are not themselves, they are someone else. So when they take up some other name and they commit a mistake or an error, they do not get under stress. Okay, because they think that the person whose name they have taken has committed the mistake, it wasn't them. Okay, so it is all psychological, right? And so the stress is desuggested basically, obligation is desuggested. Okay, um, testing is desuggested, or examining them or evaluating them later on. So they don't have any burden. Learning is not taken as a burden in this method, as simple as that, right? So to lessen the burden, to remove that burden, a lot of things or all activities are directed towards lessening the burden. Okay, so this is what is desuggested, and it is to remove the psychological barriers, whatever barriers come. uh, and Lesanov believes that these barriers, most of the barriers that come between learning and the learner, are the stress barriers. A feeling of that they would not be able to learn things properly. Okay, let me admit some of your class fellows. So what what the students need to overcome is their fear of failure. Okay. Um, a notion or an idea that they would not be able to learn the second language for any reason, right? So this comes when a person thinks that he's not able to do something, then it acts as a barrier between him and the task to be accomplished. So all the time, as we would witness the class, we'll see that the teacher is telling them that second language learning is very easy and they will be able to learn, reassuring the students again and again that they would be able to learn. Okay. She would never say that the language learning is difficult or they need to work hard. She just tells them that they would automatically learn the language with the passage of time. Okay. And the activities that are designed for them, um, that too, right? Okay. Now, what are the characteristics of this method? What are the paraphernalia? What is the requirement? Now, this method is said to be not very expensive, but it needs a lot of paraphernalia. For instance, these classes need to have curtains. These classes need to have decoration. Okay. Now, in decoration, what the teacher does is she puts colorful pictures and charts where different grammar structures are given. As we have seen in our classrooms also, something related to the syllabus is put on the charts, and the charts are put on the soft boards. What does it do? Why do we this is usual practice in the schools, especially in the primary schools with the children. What might be the use of putting um, charts on the soft board, and charts are about some relevant material? What might be the purpose? Yes, get to your chat. What might be the purpose of, let me put the question here. On the soft boards in the classrooms. Now, at this level, at university level, we don't really take the decoration of the class very seriously, and we may put something of something of literature that might not be related to the syllabus also, or some quotation, something else, something interesting, some piece of information there, and not necessarily the part of the syllabus. So here teachers do not teach students through the charts, but yes, Zara is right, to make the students familiar. Exactly. You see, Adina is right. Now, these structures are not taught explicitly to them. This is called as peripheral learning through observation, because they would be looking at the charts every day. Okay, and after every few weeks, the charts would change with newer structure. The teacher seldom refers to those charts. Those are only for the observation of the students. So when students look at the chart every day, okay, besides the lesson, because they are not under any kind of pressure or stress to learn, so it also improves their observation. They look around, they see it every day, and they know that they don't necessarily have to learn, but they learn anyway. And this kind of learning is called as peripheral learning. Okay, which is one of the important characteristics of this method. We are going to talk about that also, right? So one thing that Zara has written, yes, it makes the student familiar. Okay, It isn't anything new. If these structures they would see somewhere else in their textbooks, or they would see the teacher using those structures, or anywhere else also during the course of learning the second language, so it wouldn't be anything new for them. And familiarity with things makes the learning easier. Okay. Yes, Amen, might be just to motivate the students towards learning, but you know, this method is less about the actual serious teaching where a lot of motivation is required. They just learn. Okay, they just learn from their surrounding. They just come to the classroom, do certain activities, and go home. Okay, and there's an arrangement of music also. You would see that some of the activities would need music, and the music selection of the music is done by the teacher, and that is a careful selection, right? Okay, so other than that, the furniture, I told you that those are cushion chairs, not the usual chairs that we find in the classroom. Those are relaxing cushion armchairs. Okay, and if the teacher is able to arrange a better furniture, so she should. So see, um, things as basic as furniture is also different in the classrooms. Okay, now as far as the arrangement of the student is concerned, while we would be visiting the class in Egypt, we would notice that the students are arranged in semicircle. Okay, the usual um, the usual setting of the class, as students chairs are put in line one after the other, they're sitting behind each other. It's not like this. Okay, it's a small class, and everyone can fit in within the semicircle, so that the teacher could see everyone, and everyone is sitting with the other person. They are all well connected. They learn the language together, and it shows that how well connected they would be. Okay, because they would be conversing with one another, they would be doing a lot of activities, and no one would be sitting behind the other person. Okay, all in the same row, um, with the semicircle arrangement. That is, I think, technically also called as horseshoe arrangement, but the students arrangement is in a semicircle. Everyone is visible to the teacher, and everyone is connected to the other person sitting next to each other. Okay, other than that, one thing that might be similar of Suggestopedia with the other method is the authoritative behavior of the teacher. Now, this authoritative behavior, according to Lizunov, is because students are motivated to learn when something is coming from the authorities. Whose mic is on? Okay, right. So here Lozanov believes that authority does not stress the students, does not, burdenize the student. The teacher is authoritative in the sense that anything that comes from the authority is taken seriously. Only to that extent, the teacher's behavior is authoritative. Okay, and she's the one who selects her own um, techniques or activities in the class. She's the one who would select the music in the class, and she would be the one who would select the activities that might go well with the music. Music is just not for the relaxation, but it is related to the activities that would be, created by the teacher. Now, the use of soft rock, it's a kind of a music, and that happens to make the method very, very unique, right? So these are some of the characteristics of this method, and you must have known by this time that how different this method is from the rest of the methods, right? Okay. Okay, now music forms a very important part of this method, and the psychiatrist Lezunov believes that this music happens to be a therapy. And in one of the books, um, he actually gives a reference of the Bible also, that music is stress relieving. Okay, and it helps in maintaining the personal relations. It increases people's self-esteem because they feel satisfied in musical performance. Okay, and music is energizing, right? So these are some of the reasons that are part of a psychological theory, as he was a psychiatrist. So he believes that music helps in relaxation, um, elevates a person's self-esteem, increases self-satisfaction. Okay, and this is energizing also. So when the student would not feel bored in the classrooms, when they will feel full of energy, okay, and when they will have higher self-esteem, right? Self-esteem, what is self-esteem, by the way? And this is an important variable in second language learning. What is self-esteem? Yes, what is self-esteem? Not exactly pride, but Zara is right. How do you look yourself? How look? How do you look at yourself? Okay, that is your self-esteem. How do people look at you has nothing to do with your self-esteem. Okay, so how do you look at your self-esteem? Now, I told you that yes, that's where the confidence one's own birth. Okay. Now, when you think yourself well, you think about yourself, you feel good about yourself. So that is self-esteem, and that really helps in learning, because someone who does not have self-esteem, does not have self-worth, develops a feeling that he is going to fail in life, or he would, whatever he would do, he wouldn't be able to do that. Similarly, people with, or students with less self-esteem usually do not well in the classrooms. Okay, now I'll tell you how the self-esteem increases. It's just not the music, but it is something more than that. Okay, yeah, it is, it is a confidence in your own abilities. That's right. Okay, I think someone raised her hand by mistake. Now, I was telling you that how the self-esteem is raised in this method, especially. What happens is, we'll know while we would be experiencing this class, uh, we would come to know. Yeah, maybe, but I got it. I got you. Sarah has answered, Asifa, Habiba, all of these girls. Adina is always there. Sarah and Bushra Iman. Fine, got it. Okay. See, this chat remains an evidence of your participation also. So if there is a separate allocation in online classes, if you have read the policy or the evaluation of the student, you will be evaluated on your class performance also. So this chat happens to be a record. Okay. Now we were talking about the self-esteem and how the self-esteem is raised or improved in these methods. As we said, that self-esteem is your self-worth, and it increases with the success. When you are successful, or when you feel that you will be successful, or when you feel that you have the capacity, capability, and ability to be successful, there is a raise in your self-esteem, right? Now what happens here, that of course these are second language learners and they would make mistakes. Now with the fear that when they would make mistakes, it might affect their self-esteem. Okay, they might not feel themselves very successful. So what the teacher does it, the teacher changes their name. Okay, they are given new names and they are given new professions also. One thing is, they after that they would be doing the greeting activity with their new names, and with their new profession they would be learning some structures also, the greeting structures and the initial conversation structures we would see. But what happens is that when they commit a mistake, okay, they wouldn't, you know, wouldn't feel that this is them who is committing a mistake. They would assume that it is someone else, the identity that they have taken for the class. So um, so according to this method, if the students are identified as not themselves but someone else, okay, their identity is taken for just for the purpose of conducting the classroom and just for the teaching purposes, so they would feel more confident, they would participate more in the class. Okay, because teacher does not take their name, they commit mistake, and psychologically this Lozanov believes that psychologically they think that someone else is doing it. Okay, so they become more confident, their self-esteem raises, and then they perform better in the class. Okay, because the fear of failure is not associated with them, the failure goes to the other identity that they have taken in the classroom. Okay, so they do not hesitate to practice the new language, they do not hesitate to make errors and mistakes in the new language, right? Okay, now we will go to the class, right? We look at the approach also, and then we will visit a class and experience a class that is taking place in Egypt. The mother tongue of the student is Arabic, and this is probably the beginners level class. Okay, now as far as the approach is concerned, um, there isn't a theory of language according to Lozanov. Okay, and the theory of language learning, I've already told you that it's the Krushen fictive filter hypothesis, right? Otherwise, it's the students are suggestible, whereas their fears are desuggested. That is why it is also called as desuggestopedia. So certain things like fear of failure, burdening, learning as a burden, and barriers, all of these are desuggested, whereas students are given importance. Students as individuals, students as human, students as learners are given importance in this method. So they are suggested, and the fears, the burden, the stress, all of this is desuggested. As far as the theory of language is concerned, he does not give any. Okay. Let me admit some of your class fellows, then we'll move on. Okay. So we would look at this approach in detail while we would be experiencing the class in Egypt. And here there are 6 theoretical components of Suggestopedia. One of them we have already done as authority. Second is infantilization, and the word comes from infants. Then there is double plainedness, intonation, rhythm, there would be concert, and there would be pseudo passiveness. Okay, the class you would see, it's not a very active class as we saw in the audiolingual method or in the oral approach, situational language teaching. You would see that the class environment is very relaxed. Okay, and you would see that there's no pressure of learning on the students, and It is just not what goes on in the classroom, but the environment that is created, or the environment that needs to be created in order to practice this method, is also very, very relaxing. Okay. Good furniture, comfortable furniture, uh, dim lights, and decorative classrooms. Okay. So we would look at these. You would find all of these through the techniques that the teacher takes to teach this method. Okay. So let's visit the classroom, and let me change your slide to the book. Okay, here comes book. If you have the books, you can, we'll be experiencing this class from Larson Freeman's book. And if you have the books, you can take those out. For those who do not have the book or cannot have access right now, I'm sharing the book here. Now, basically what happens is, the method is based on the belief that the reason for students' inefficiency are the psychological barriers to learning. Okay, they fear that they would be unable to perform and they will fail. So they are unable to use their full mental powers. Okay, let me show you in the book also. Okay, in some books you would see it as Suggestopedia, in other books you will see it as Suggestopedia, but both names are correct. Okay, so you don't have to worry about if you see Suggestopedia, both of these are the same. There are few things that are suggested or suggestible, and then there are few things that are desuggested. Okay, all right, let me share your screen. Yes, here we are. Okay, so see, this method was given by Lozanov, I guess, in 1978, right? And here he has talked about psychological barrier related to the inefficiency, with the fear that the students would be unable to perform well, and this would limit their ability to learn. Okay, the fear of failure, the fear of not performing well. Okay, so there is a need to desuggest few things. Okay, Suggestopedia means suggestible pedagogy. Okay, so some things are suggestible and some things are desuggested. So this is, a little bit of an introduction that I've told you already. So what is desuggested and what is suggested? Now, what are we going to experience is class in the university in Egypt, and the students are of the beginner level, right? And of course, the course that is being taught is of the same level, and these students are meeting 2 hours, 3 mornings a week. Okay, so meaning thereby that they try to learn English as a second language 6 hours a week. Okay, now the first thing that you would notice, of course, when we started doing this method, we read that the environment of the class is created by the teacher especially for this method. Okay, see, the students are sitting in half circle, right? And these are the charts. There are structures, there are pictures that are there for the students for powerful learning that we have just discussed. Okay, so when we enter this class, we notice that this class is very different from the usual or the traditional classrooms, right? Everything is very bright and colorful, and there are posters on the wall, and these posters are most of them are travel posters with scenes from the United Kingdom or the US. The language that they are going to learn, they are shown it through these posters. A few, however, contains these grammatical information, right? Conjugation of verbs. These are some of the grammatical structures that can be noticed here. Now, as I told you that, you know, it is kind of a burden when the students are required to use only the target language. Okay, like in our schools also you will find if we used to speak in our mother tongues or Urdu. So the fear of being punished to use the second language happens to be a barrier in learning. Okay, so realizing that burden, the teacher greets the students in Arabic. Okay, Arabic happens to be their mother tongue because this is a class in Egypt where Arabic is their national language also, right? And then she tells them that they are about to begin new and exciting experience in language learning, right? Now, how does she reassure them again and again to make them comfortable? You won't need to try to learn. Like you don't have to exert any effort in learning the second language. It will just come naturally, right? So right after greeting, we see the teacher reassuring the students, okay? Telling them that it would not be hard for them to learn the second language, and then they don't need to exert any effort. It would just come automatically, right? Otherwise, telling them, giving them a list of words just to sit and learn or to repeat after her, and making it very, very compulsory to rote learn anything or to practice the structures through some exercises, may burden them. So she reassures that, whatever would be done in the classrooms would lead to automatic language learning, which is not the case, but it is only to reduce the affective filter and the psychological barriers. Okay, now here um, comes the changing of identity. So as so so that their self-esteem is raised. So she gives them a list of names in English. Okay, of course, people have their culture names. So two things they have done. One is giving them a little introduction of the UK, where English is spoken, about its people, about its places through um, the decoration in the class. Second thing she does is to give them English names. Okay, um, she brings up a list of names and asks them, to to take any of the names that they would like to have. So she tells them that they will be having new identities, right? And this would be a newer experience for them. So she gives them different names, and the students, they're familiar with Roman alphabets, all that, so they can at least read these names, which are English names, and they pick up one for themselves. So there are some male names and there are some female names. So according to their gender, they just take their names, and then she pronounces each name and has the student repeat the pronunciation. So the first thing we see here is teaching them pronunciation, but not through any of the literary kind of a text. Okay, just pronouncing the name, as simple as that. Okay, so she takes a very relaxed start. One thing, as soon as the student enter the classroom, they find a very relaxed kind of an environment, very different from traditional classrooms. Secondly, the first activity that they undertake is very, very simple. It's not stress giving. They only have to take the names, and they need to learn to pronounce those English names, okay, correctly. So the teacher helps them in correct pronunciation of their chosen names, right? So then she tells the students that during this course they will create an imaginary biography about their lives and their new identities. Basically, they would be deciding about their profession. Okay. Now the teacher gives them different profession. If anyone would like to be a pilot, singer, carpenter, artist, engineer, whatever, so they have to choose a profession for themselves. So this is also a fun activity. Okay, choosing another name and choosing the profession imaginary. If ever they thought of becoming someone and they could not, if ever they thought of joining a certain profession, they might not be able to. So here it's like acting as one. If someone wanted to be a pilot, he can or she can take up a name and become a pilot. Okay. If someone wants to be a singer, she can introduce herself as a singer, right? So this is also a fun activity, choosing a dream profession, right? So all of these, they choose one of the professions. Now, the teacher greets them again, but this time with their new names. Okay, and then she uh, poses some question in English about their occupation, right? Now, through her actions, the students understand the meaning of her question and they reply only in yes and no. No replies in the full sentence, no answering in the full sentences as was and as used to be compulsory in the rest of the methods. Okay, that the students were required to answer in full sentences, but here it's okay. They're just starting to learn. It's a beginner's level, and through the actions, not actually through the conversation of the teacher, through the action of the teacher, the students get to know what kind of question it might be and they are answering it as yes and no. So she then teaches them a short English dialogue, right, in which two people greet each other and inquire what each other does for a living. So see, and two things are already given to the students: their names, and they are taught how to pronounce it, and then they are given their professions also that they have chosen on their own. Now they are going to the first thing that they are going to do as a class. They learn to greet. Okay. Now, what principle we get from here is that they are being prepared for the simplest and the actual language use. Of course, if they have to use the language, the first thing they need to know is how to greet people in that language, okay, or how to introduce themselves. Okay, so the teacher tells them how they would be greeting each other and how they would be introducing themselves, right? Through the English dialogue between two people um, who are talking and introducing themselves. So after practicing this dialogue with the group, they introduce themselves to the teacher and then they play various rhythm instruments that the teacher has brought as they sing a name song. Okay, so the teacher selects some name song and as they are practicing their names and introducing them to the teacher, then they sing. Okay, then the teacher has brought the instruments also to the classroom. He or she plays and the students sing. Okay, right. um, there are some schools, the one that I attended also used to have a singing class also, but it had nothing to do with teaching of the language, but still we used to learn some English from the songs also. So songs are a source of language teaching, right? So they need to relax by singing because they have done some activity. Okay, it wasn't burdensome, but still in order to make them relax and stay connected with the activity of the names, they sing a song and the instruments are present in the class. Okay, there would be the presence of recorders also that we would see the teacher has brought along, and the teacher would also give a rhythm to her conversation, right? Now Once this is done, next the teacher announces to the class that they will be beginning a new adventure. She distributes a handout. Okay, it's a 20-page handout, but uh, what relaxes the student is this handout consists of 2 columns. Okay, now in one column there are English dialogues, and in the other column the translation is given in Arabic. So this also, relaxes the student, that whenever they would be stuck with the second language or with English language, their mother tongue would always be at hand to help them to understand the dialogue, right? So this handout seemingly is 20 pages, but it consists of their English language also, English second language, and the Arabic language also. And then um, there is a proverbial dialogue also, which is also encouraging. To want is to be able to. What does it mean? To want to is to be able to. The first dialogue, okay, they don't have to learn this, but they need to understand it. Okay, the translation is already there in Arabic. The teacher explains and translate it into Arabic. But what does it mean? To want to is to be able to. To want to is to be able to. Okay, or Zara is right. If you want something first, you make yourself be able to achieve it. Yes, this is a motivational and an encouraging kind of a dialogue that they start with. Yes, if you want to do, if you want to achieve something, you will be. Okay. The first thing is your desire to achieve. Okay. She doesn't talk about efforts here. Okay. She only tells them that if you want to learn English as a second language, you learn it. You don't need a lot of effort or hard work, but it's only the desire. If you are here to learn, and if you're serious in learning, so you would learn. Okay. So this is the handout that is given to the student, and this is the first dialogue, which they, of course, they don't have to learn. Now on the right page are 2 columns print. In the left one is English dialogues, and in the right the Arabic translation. Okay. Then on the left page are some comments of Arabic about certain of the English vocabulary items and grammatical structures the student will encounter in the dialogue on facing page. These items have been bold faced in the dialogues throughout the 20 pages are reproduction of classical paintings. So the book is very colorful. Um, it has both the languages, English and Arabic, and then there are paintings also. Okay, some related painting, some not related painting, and then when there are some dialogues and the teacher feels that there might be a need of translation, then those dialogues or those words in English are bold faced. They are, um, they are bold faced, and then their explanation is given in Arabic. If they have a different connotation than their meaning or anything like that, the student need to know in their mother tongue. So that is given in. Oops, I think this is the students from other class. Anyway, right? So we'll continue with the techniques that are applied here, and then we will go to the principles tomorrow. I would like you to read this. It's an interesting one, and we'll be meeting tomorrow, right? So I have to go for my next class also, right? Okay, your recording would be available to you. Do remind me, Eamon, in the evening. I think I've not uploaded yesterday's recording also. Do remind me to upload the recording.